Thank you for tuning in to episode 238 of This Week in Real Estate, the T-Wire podcast. We're broadcasting live July 5th, 2023. Is housing fizzling out? This episode was brought to you by listeners and viewers like you. We don't have any Patreon or any way for you to donate to support the show. I appreciate the offers, but please support the show by taking just a second to hit the share button on your favorite podcatcher and let people know that you're listening to this show and you think they should too. Because after all, it is people just like you that make this show possible just by listening. If you're watching live, we're broadcasting on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. If you're on YouTube, you can comment and then we can display your comment and talk about you or talk about your comment. There you go. There's Matt LaMarche right there. He's saying, hey, first again. Sorry, Canada. We do have some Canadians that always try to beat Matt. Howard, he's commenting on Facebook. We can also display your Facebook comment. He's watching us from Israel. What's up, Howard? Olivier finally chiming in from the Great North. He says, blah, blah, blah. Well, thank you guys for joining us there. If you're on Clubhouse, you can actually raise your hand and come up to the stage and add your 2 cents about what's happening. But this podcast was created so that you could have one place to find out the latest real estate news and headlines with a succinct professional analysis from those of us who are active in the field. So thanks so much for joining us. This week, we have a ton of news. I'm saying that half sarcastically because being a holiday week in the US, it seems like all the reporters forgot to file anything. And so most of the real estate news that even happened this week came out today. So I was watching on Monday, there was nothing. On Tuesday, there was hardly anything. And then sure enough, on Wednesday, there's like 3 or 4 reports that are filed today. But just to kind of give you an overview of what we're talking about, house hunting, we're going to be talking about that. The U.S. housing market defying expectations. The prices are still up for some reason. We're going into the housing market update with the home prices compared to last year. There's a bit of a summer cool down, which we talked about the spring cool down and the delayed market there. And there were some thoughts that maybe that meant that this summer would kick off. And so far, that's not happened yet. Mortgage rates climb after falling for 3 straight weeks. So we'll talk about that climb and what it means for buyers. And then we're back in court with the NAR and DOJ. The DOJ is making an amicus brief for the NAR class action lawsuit. We'll talk about exactly what that means if you've never heard of that. It's pretty common. But the NAR is also back in the headlines for a sexual harassment case. So we'll be going over that too. Olivier says, house hunters, are you picking house number 1, 2, or 3? Yeah, that's always there's, you know how that works, right? I mean, surely if you're a consumer and you're watching like, oh, they always look at 3 houses and pick one of those. Usually the deal is almost done by the time that show is filmed. And then they go back into the homes and kind of reenact everything. But, you know, that's for TV. Everybody knows that kind of stuff's for TV. Let's see. I'm going to invite a couple of you guys up here. Mike and Olivia, I don't know why y'all aren't already up here because I think y'all are moderators in the chat, but who knows? Is the audio okay on Clubhouse? I wasn't able to check before we went live there.
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Matt LaMarche, he's moderating there. He can make you guys the moderators too. Feel free to chime in as we talk about some of these articles, but we'll dive right in. So the first article is from CNBC. It says, housing is already tough. Guess what? It's about to get harder. Anyone shopping for a home in the resale market knows pickings are slim. They're about to get slimmer. The number of homes for sale this month was actually 7% higher than June of last year, according to Realtor.com. But in just less than a week, that comparison went negative, with the number of homes for sale falling to year-ago levels for the first time in 59 weeks. Sorry, it fell below year-ago levels for the first time in 59 weeks. The new listings in the last week of June were down 29% from the same week a year ago. What happened? It was up 7%. And then bam, down 29% from the same week a year ago. An even tighter housing market just means that prices are unlikely to cool. Prices peaked in June after rising over 45% from the pre-pandy levels. They begin to fall, but mortgage rates have doubled in a matter of months, which is causing part of that. Mortgage prices bottomed out in January, according to the latest S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Index, which we covered last week. The ongoing recovery in prices is broadly based, said Craig Lazara, managing director, S&P DJI. But it seems like there's no reprieve for the limited supply, which is causing a lot of issues for home buyers. Olivier said our market is 6 months behind, our meaning the U.S. market compared to his Canadian market. He said your market is 6 months behind ours. I have to keep reminding you. So are you, Olivier, you're joining us also on Clubhouse. Are you experiencing some increase in home buyers, or are you still way behind on inventory and home buyers for the year?
So inventory is somewhat up, but there's parts of the market that aren't moving anymore. I mean, prices are coming down because the higher priced homes are not selling. The medium market is not selling. And if you have a house in my market, which is about 800,000, it's probably not moving. You're probably getting, 180 days on market, and unless it's turnkey, you're not selling. But if you have a house at 450,000, 500,000, you're selling in a heartbeat. But again, last month's transactions were down 10% over last year, and last year they were already down quite a lot, and we're really on track for our worst year in the last 20 years. So
the worst year as far as housing sales numbers go.
Yeah, number of transactions. And we're probably going to end up at 75, 80,000 for the whole province. And we were at 121,000 at the peak of the market in 2021.
Wow. And do you think the solve is additional inventory, or is the solve going to be lower rates, in your opinion?
Well, right now it's the rates that are playing on the market. But once the rates go down, if they go down, we have an inventory issue still. Mm-hmm. We had a rental crisis here where an apartment that was $800 or $900 a month 3 years ago is now $1,400 a month, even with rental board controls, because people are playing around with the rules and are bending the rules, and they're getting the higher rents. So people can't afford rent, but they can't afford a mortgage either because of the stress test you need to pass on your mortgage. So we're kind of in a hard place. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place in the future, but short term, it's really interest rates playing on the market right now.
So just because interest rates lower in your market it's not going to be a solve for the housing inventory, because if there's no new homes for people to choose from, then you have lower rates, but what are you going to buy? So I assume that's going to make home prices skyrocket. Have you noticed a slight increase or decrease in home prices lately? What has it been doing?
What I find is price lowered maybe 10, 15% from the max that we got, but they're pretty stable now. The reason we're seeing the average price go down is because people are buying lower priced homes, so that market is still good. And you can't build a house for $500,000 right now. Just the land is worth $200,000 right off the bat, and building the house is like $600,000-$700,000 for the contractor. So you have to sell a house for $1 million or close to $1 million. So you have to build like townhouses or real condos.
Yeah,
but people don't want to buy an 800 square foot condo when you're 30 years old and you want to have 2 kids. They want to buy a house with a yard. It's like this suburb dream that you have. So we really have an inventory issue that will come up when rates go down, but I don't know when that will be. I mean, we might have other issues like a job crisis really soon, right, because we're starting to see people getting laid off from jobs. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's a interesting time to have to look at what's happening in the economy, but we're really walking a tightrope right now. So I don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Well, and really the job thing, if it's anything like the U.S., is expected, because whenever you have an environment in which interest rates are increasing, it doesn't expand the economy, it contracts the economy. So a natural evolution of that is that the job numbers start to go negative. They start to change, and you start to lose jobs, which means there's fewer people putting demand on orders, which means inflation starts to reverse. So it's a natural consequence of the policy that both America and Canada has taken on recently. But one major problem, as you suggested, is there's not much reprieve from these home prices. We know that homes skyrocketed from 2019 to today, but it doesn't look like there's going to be a major reduction in home prices like some have predicted. This article is from Fox Business. It says the U.S. housing market is defying expectations of a crash this year, despite what other YouTubers would say, as limited inventory is keeping high demand and prices high. The government-backed mortgage giant Fannie Mae had economists who predicted a revised forecast that home prices would fall at a slower rate than previously anticipated. Home price gains fall at a slower rate. The government-backed mortgage giant estimated the home prices would only decline 1.2% in 2023, 2.2% in 2024, and they would tumble 4.2%. This was their original. Their original prediction was that they would tumble 4.2% this year, and it just didn't happen. So the current housing market dynamics continue to be fueled by a lack of existing homes available for sale, a trend that did not improve during the spring home buying season when more homes were typically put on the market. The Fannie Mae economist wrote in its analysis, this supposed return to home price growth in recent months continued to boost new home construction. So obviously, if there's more of a demand for a widget, there's going to be more of those widgets made, and housing is no different in a way. The higher the longer the home prices stay high, then the more builders will be building homes for people to purchase. So home prices continue to show stronger growth than was previously expected, given the suddenness and significant magnitude of mortgage rate increases, said the Fannie Mae chief economist Doug Duncan. Housing performance is a testimony to the strength of demographic-related demand in the face of baby boomers aging in place and Gen Xers locking into historically low rates, both of which have helped keep housing supply at historically low levels. I mean, so part of what they're saying, the baby boomers aging in place is in direct contradiction to the big silver wave that Dan had predicted for a couple of years and that we've been talking about for a long time. That silver wave is just not happening because more baby boomers are just staying put. And I think one of the reasons that they're able to stay put is because our health and medical advances that we've made over the last several years and the home health stuff has allowed a baby boomer to stay in place and not move and to age there where they are. And because of that, those homes are not hitting the market like they once were as people would go into nursing homes and as they would move to Florida and warmer climates and things like that we normally saw. That silver wave is what they were predicting. It just hasn't happened yet. The other part of that is that everyone, we covered an article last week that said everyone that currently owns a home has an interest rate lower than 6%, just about. So if they're looking to purchase, usually their interest rate in this environment is going to be 6.5 or something like that. And so you have to have a really good argument for them to move. And it usually has to be a reason that's apart from just there's no one moving on a whim right now. No one moving just because. And as long as they stay put because their interest rates are better where they are, it's going to create a limited inventory market. That's why the spring home buying season didn't see so many homes hit the market as people were moving around, because people just didn't move, or those that did kept the home that they had a 2% interest rate on because they felt like they're getting paid just to keep it. Housing market update. This next article is on Redfin. It's their weekly housing report. It says housing market update. The typical U.S. home is selling for just $4,000 less than last year. Last year was at an all-time high. So the home price declines are shrinking. The typical U.S. home is selling for roughly $383,000. That's only about $4,000 less, which is less than 1% than the all-time high set last June. The smallest year-over-year drop in nearly 4 months. Additionally, it's the second time since August that the sale to list price ratio has hit 100%. In other words, the average home is selling for asking price, which is exactly what we have here locally in my market. A lack of homes for sale is keeping prices afloat, which we just talked about. New listings fell 27% from a year earlier, 4 weeks ending in June 25th. The biggest drop since the start of the pandemic. That's contributed to the total number of homes for sale declining 11%. Now, that's the first double-digit drop in over a year. Inventory is falling because of high rates. The homeowners staying put, which we just talked about. High rates are also deterring home buyers, but they still outnumber home sellers. So there's still more people looking to purchase than there are looking to sell. I do want to share the chart that's on this page here. There you go. So you're seeing the median sell price is 0.9% year over year. So it only drops just slightly than where it was. And then the median asking price is actually up 0.3% year over year. So we're on path to almost exactly what we did in 2022. As you can see, these lines follow the averages of the median asking prices. And then the home buyer housing payments, this is where the big difference comes into play. At the start of 2022, I'm showing a chart that shows somewhere around $1,600. And at the start of 2023, the average housing payment was somewhere around $2,250. Now it is up to $2,630. Midway through 2022, it actually did increase. It got up there, but it was only about $2,400. So we're still about $230 higher than we were last year, and the average rate's at 6.67%. Matt said, is he the only one surprised that Olivier can't tell us the future? I mean, come on, man. And Olivier says, I am close to telling you, but it will be Armageddon. There's only some things that Olivier can share with the rest of us who couldn't handle the details of his prediction. Here's the pending sales, and this is also what Olivier was talking about, how his sales are so much lower in Canada. That's also what's happening in the U.S. Pending sales is down 15% year over year. And then the new listings of homes is down 27%. And this is the part of the story where usually Lawrence Yun comes in and says, but if we had more inventory, we'd have a lot more sales. Which seems to be true, but that doesn't really help us. There's 2.6 months of supply available on the market. That's comparable to right around, we'll see in 2022, there are only about 2.2 months of supply. In 2021, there was about 2 months of supply. So we still have more supply than we had in 2022 and 2021, but we still have fewer homes selling. And then in the 32% of pending sales under contract are within 2 weeks. It's just some more interesting stats. So y'all can go read the full report on Redfin, but I thought that was something interesting for us to take a look at. Matt asked him what's going to happen in 6 months, and then Olivier says, home sales are much slower here, but looking at my Instagram, agents are making more money. That's what matters, right? It's the Instagram influence that we all have. All right, let's go to the fourth article. It's the summer cooldown. So where is the lifeline? This article on Inman suggests that it's newly built homes. 3 leading economists share what's ahead for the summer. And Orphy, I may be saying his name totally wrong. Orphy Devungai. He is the Zillow senior economist. He said, we've learned that mortgage rates don't just have negative impact on buyers, right? They also have a negative impact on sellers. It's in the spring, buyers came back, but there was an absence of sellers. That will continue to be challenging this summer. So April showers failed to yield May flowers as much of the country in this spring as volatile mortgage rate functions continued to drive market dynamics. Rising mortgage rates remain the main culprit. Matthew Gardner, he is the, what is he? Hang on, let me find his job title here. Okay, Windermere chief economist Matthew Gardner and the Redfin chief economist Daryl Fairweather said agents and consumers have at least one thing to celebrate. The U.S. government is avoiding default. That's because June 2nd, I mean, that was a month ago. they're talking about this deal. But June 2nd, they passed a bipartisan bill that kept us out of default, meaning that rates wouldn't go nuts. And then Gardner said, if you think about it, for almost 98% of home buyers, buying a home is the most expensive thing they will ever buy in their lives. Now, if there's uncertainty out there regarding whether or not the debt ceiling or if we're going to have a recession, people tend to do nothing. So 30 days ago, people did nothing, and that's why we're in such a low right now. Maybe. And the number of people that actually believed that we would default is pretty slim. So I'm gonna go with I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that had a huge impact. I think the other things that he's mentioning have way more of an impact. New home sales have been driving purchase activity in recent months as buyers look for options beyond existing market. That's a Mortgage Bankers Association Deputy Chief Economist Joel Kahn. He said existing home sales continue to be held back by the lack of for sale inventory as many potential buyers are holding on to their lower rate mortgages. So it's the same story over and over and over, using different data points and different economists that say the same thing. There's Matt, the con. It's saying the same thing. Olivier in there too. Appreciate you guys. However, there seems to be no real answer other than hopefully there will be more builders building. And this is where the YouTube crash people get their content. Another article, because we have seen mortgage rates falling for 3 weeks straight. Well, that's over. Fox Business has an article that says that the 30-year fixed rate mortgage rose slightly to 6.71% this week. Adam Johnson says there's a silver lining in home price decline. What is that? Our Adam Johnson? I don't think so, but manager Adam the Payne Capital Management president Ryan Payne and Bullseye American Ingenuity Fund portfolio manager Adam Johnson. Adam, if you're out there, chime up. The average long-term U.S. mortgage rate rose this week after declining for the past 3 weeks, according to the weekly data compared by the mortgage buyer Freddie Mac. The rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage rose 6.71% this week from 6.67% a week ago. 1 year ago, it averaged 5.7%. That's still, there's a stat stuck in my head from 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago that said 78% of home buyers are waiting for 5.5% interest rates. So we still have buyers that are buying right now. One of the reasons why our buyers are excited to buy at 7% interest rates is because if mortgage rates do go down to 5.5%, they could refi if they wanted to. But more importantly, there's going to be such a flood of buyers into the marketplace, as nearly 80% of buyers are waiting on that number, that their home value is going to go skyrocket through the roof. And when that does, they're already in their home. So they don't have to compete with all these other offers right now like they would in a 5.5% interest rate environment. Mortgage rates have hovered in the 6 to 7% range for over 6 months, and despite affordability headwinds, homebuyers have adjusted and driven new home sales to the highest level in more than a year. As Sam Carter, Freddie Mac's chief economist, said. Meanwhile, the average rate on a 15-year fixed rate was up 6.06%. Carter said that new home sales have rebounded more robustly than the resale market due to the marginally greater supply of new construction. So finally, I mean, the good news in all the new construction stuff is that they're able to build and sell a house in less than 12 months again. Y'all remember that? When buyers were going under contract on a home and then they had to back out because the interest rates went up so high while they were under contract for a year to purchase that home that they could no longer purchase the home. And all the news stories that we had, that also, there's a point where someone with a 3.5 to 4% homeowner will say, I'm butchered that because the connection issue there is making the comment appear and disappear for me. So, okay, it's back up now. You said a big enough drop in rates would spur buyer demand, would also ease inventory since many sellers want buyers also. Okay, I get it now. There's a point where someone with a 3.5% to 4% homeowner will stay. Is that what you meant?
Well, they'll say, screw it. I need to make a move. They're in a smaller house than they need. At some point, they're going to become a buyer and they'll ease some inventory to a certain degree.
By putting but what is that point though?
I don't know. I was thinking about that right now. I think it maybe like 5.5, under 5.5%. Where, if you, think of the equity they've gained, that they're going to weigh that in with their new mortgage payment. The additional equity they have, they can reduce what their loan amount probably will be. So, or could be.
And Julie Moon says your permits are maxed out. What? Explain. If you need more permits, but you have your permits maxed out, how does this happen, Julie Moon? Are you there? She is in Clubhouse, but maybe she can't speak. That's interesting. I think that's the big question is what's the point where existing inventory, people that currently own their home, what's that rate look like where people are like, okay, we need to move. Let's go ahead and do this. Despite the interest rate, let's go ahead and do this. Where they're encouraged to actually take advantage. One of the major issues that we've had from some of our buyers is that they want a bigger house, but their payments would actually be more than their current house, which is smaller. But not like, that sounds obvious. That's stupid. But what I'm saying is the pricing is not that much different, but the payment is way different. What they could sell their home for and then buy this next home is about the same, but their payment is like 50% more. And so they're staying put until that changes a little bit.
Hey,
yeah, go ahead.
What I meant was that we have so many people wanting to move here, but our infrastructure, most of the houses here are on septic. We only have a certain amount of permits that the county will allow. They won't let the schools get too big, but everybody is trying to move to this area. So we don't have any less construction than another good time in real estate. It's just that we have so few neighborhoods being built compared to the amount of people trying to move to this area because we are just east of Atlanta. We are much more affordable than Atlanta because since the pandemic, we have had tons of people moving from other parts of the country as well.
Yeah.
And so we just can't keep, even if we were building every permit out in our county, we still can't get anywhere near the inventory that we need.
So inevitably your prices are going to skyrocket, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah. I mean, I built to this house in 2019 that I live in, and I'm about to list one in my neighborhood for 40% more than I bought my house for.
Wow. That's Julie Moon there. I've got you on the screen now. That's Julie Moon there. It says follow by speakers. For whatever reason, the web version of Clubhouse does not update as quickly as there it goes. All right. Well, now you're covered up by that. And tell people what part of Atlanta you're in again. What's the city?
I am in Athens, Georgia, which is about an hour east of Atlanta, right where the University of Georgia is, Oconee County and Clark County.
And just allowing you to get your University of Georgia plug in again.
Yeah, back-to-back national champions. Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me when y'all got a basketball team.
Some call it a dynasty, right?
I don't think anyone is calling that a dynasty. No one is calling Georgia.
We are definitely.
Just the Georgians are calling it a dynasty. All right. Well, speaking of wrong, the NAR is back in court. Do you like that, Georgians?
How dare you?
I better not ruffle any feathers. We have a lot of people in Georgia that listen to the show, which is funny. Whenever you look at I think it's in part due to Matt and Julie. We have Scap on every now and then, but there's a lot of Georgians that listen to the show. So I'll just say that we'll see you on the court. That's where we'll see you, because it's not going to be on the field. All right, so the DOJ has had this lawsuit going on a long time with TAN. TAN is Top Agent Network. They were the ones that did what was their website? The PLS. Didn't they do the PLS.com? I believe so. Or I think so. So the PLS was a private listing service where people could have pocket listing service, where agents could put pocket listings on this website that's not necessarily on the MLS. Well, the NAR came out and said, no, you can't do that. And in part was due to the settlement with the DOJ, in which they created a clear cooperations policy. And basically the rule was, and I think it took place, it was put into place this year. The rule was that if you have a listing, you have to put it in the MLS within 24 hours if you begin to market it publicly. So I can't list someone's house and go out and say, hey, I've got this really great home for sale. Come and get it before I put it in the MLS. Or I've got this really great home for sale and I'm never going to put it in the MLS. Come check it out. As a real estate agent, I'm required to, as a realtor, I'm required to submit the listing to the MLS if I'm a member of that MLS. Now, the MLS is not a member of the NAR, but yet they adopted the rule, NAR's rule, and applied it to their MLSs. So you can still, there's a caveat to this. What they're trying to do is prevent agents, and I assume brokerages / companies, from listing something in-house and then keeping it all in-house, because supposedly that's worse for the consumer. So the argument is, if I take your house and I just sell it to my people in my database, then that's worse for you because you don't get the exposure that you would have to the world. Yet there's a rule within the rule that allows a brokerage to sell that in-house to anyone else in their brokerage. So you could argue that that totally defeats the purpose of this policy and the reason why it was put into place. That's another story for another day. So let's just focus on the case at hand. This case has been going on since May 2020, when TAN's suit alleged that the National Association of Realtors and the San Francisco Association of Realtors violated a slew of antitrust and unfair competition laws for adopting a clear cooperation policy which requires listing brokers to submit a listing to their MLS within 1 business day. This was in response to a settlement with the DOJ, in which they put this in place. The DOJ has now come out and said, hey, in this case, we're going to file an amicus brief. An amicus brief is when you have a party, a third party, like the DOJ has entered the chat. That's essentially what has just happened, where you have a party that is not a party to the contract or to the agreement or to the lawsuit, but they have an expertise on the subject matter, and they're filing an amicus brief as a subject matter expert saying this is what we want to take issue with. Now, the DOJ amicus brief pointed to key errors in the district court's ruling, that it was, this case has been thrown out previously. And the DOJ says, we believe the Ninth Circuit will benefit from hearing the DOJ's perspective on the ruling. We remain confident the court will apply settled law and remand a matter back to district court. This is their appeal, as a PLS.com appeal, and the NAR's unlawful and anti-competitive clear cooperation policy disaster will be terminated. So if the CCP is terminated, then that means agents essentially can have pocket listings and can list them wherever they want to, and don't necessarily have to put them into the MLS. Now, I believe this may be is this the same lawsuit? There's another lawsuit happening with the NAR in which the MLS did take a settlement. And yeah, I believe that's a totally different case. So there's another case going on. I don't think I have it on the docket for today, where the MLS actually took a settlement. And the MLS is a different entity. And there's a lawsuit filed against Keller Williams and let me try to remember, Home Services of America, which I think that's the Berkshire Hathaway. I want to say it's Coldwell Banker, a couple other big companies. And the lawsuit suggests that the clear cooperation policy is in violation of antitrust because basically the listing agents are splitting their commissions. And the MLS took I wish I could find that story quickly. The MLS has also been named in the lawsuit, and they have taken a $3 million settlement given to the people. $2,500 went to each of the three plaintiffs, and then the rest of the money, $1.6 million, is going to be used to fight Keller Williams and the aforementioned companies, and then the lawyers are getting like $200K. I wish I could find that real quick. I'm going to try to find that article too. So there's two different articles in which the NAR is back in court. I thought this was the same one, but it's not. All right, I'll just post that on my stories later. Both of those. But the DOJ is going to be filing an amicus brief. We assume it's not pro NAR in this thing. And if you recall, the DOJ has tried to back out of their settlement. And as my memory serves me, they weren't allowed to. So Montel Williams, he is the spokesperson for NAR. He said, we can't speculate regarding the DOJ's actions, however, believed that the district court properly dismissed the case in August 2021. The CCP, the Clear Cooperation Policy, advances equal access and opportunity in housing by ensuring listings are widely available and accessible to all consumers, and requires MLS participants to submit their listings within 1 business day of marketing the property to the public if the public is not considered your brokerage. Without the protections of the CCP, consumers would be disadvantaged because agents could refuse to give agents or consumers access to those listings unless they kept it within their brokerage. I'm adding that last part. NAR and the DOJ are currently locked in a legal battle in a separate case precisely because the DOJ wants to be able to investigate NAR's clear cooperation policy as well as a separate ruling regarding commissions. So it seems like the DOJ's main gripe is that the lower court ruled that maximum exposure was always the best policy, and they're saying that basically it's not. All right, anyone want to comment on that fun part? I got one more fun article to cover today. I wish I could find the other if anybody knows where that is, the NAR and DOJ, the NAR Keller Williams lawsuit that's happening right now. I want to say it's in the Northeast. See if I can do a quick Google search and find it. No. I was just reading it again today, but no, I cannot. Okay. Looks like the last update to that one was on May 25th. The Federal Court of Appeals ruled on Wednesday that it denied a request from the National Association of Realtors Anywhere, Keller Williams, RE/MAX, and Home Services of America to overturn the class classification. So since then, there was an MLS settlement for $3 million, and that's the latest report there. So that one's still moving forward. But the 3 plaintiffs only got $2,500. All right, I'm going to try one more Google search here.
So basically what you're saying is we should have gone to law school and not real estate school.
Yeah. Well, so there's people are like, oh, you can't practice attorney as a real estate agent. And then if you go to some of these other real estate things, they're like, actually, a real estate agent in most states is a limited power of attorney for just the purposes of real estate. It's not really a power of attorney, but it's a limited attorney for the purpose of real estate because you're filling in contracts that have already been given to you. And there's always an argument about it. But what's funny to me is that attorneys, good attorneys that are real estate attorneys, I had one that drafted okay, so here's the situation. The buyer didn't want any representation. I represented the seller. As a real estate agent, I have to deal fairly and honestly with all parties. The buyer said, my brother-in-law is an attorney. I'm just going to get him to write up the agreement, send it to you. I said, great, that's fine. So the attorney brother-in-law writes up the agreement, sends it to us. I review the contract on behalf of my client, and I present it to my client. And then I have to tell my client, there's some major errors in this contract that don't protect the buyer that should be there. And because they're not there, I don't know how I can deal fairly and honestly with both the buyer and seller in this situation without mentioning this. And there were basic things that we have in our state agreements that the brother-in-law did not put in theirs. And so the seller was like, yeah, I think it's a good idea to tell them because that's bad. And so basically I called the attorney and said, hey, here's some paragraphs that you might want to add in or change or edit, or, I'm not an attorney, but I'm reviewing this and there's some things missing. And he said, you know what? You're right. Just use the state contract. He said, can you rewrite my contract on a state agreement? I said, no, but I can send you the state contract to fill out. So then you have an attorney that went to law school that's filling out our contracts. And he barely did that right. So just because you go to law school doesn't mean you're an expert in all parts of the law. All right, I found it. The MLS turns back on franchisers after settling commission's case for $3 million. So this is a separate case. The largest multiple listing service in New England agreed on Friday to overhaul its policies, pay $3 million and cooperate against the remaining real estate franchisors named in the ongoing lawsuit over commissions. So that's more interesting to me than the $3 million. Is that now the MLS is cooperating against the remaining real estate franchisors named in the ongoing lawsuit over commissions. Now, the lawsuit over commissions is that the listing agent is listing a property and agrees to split their commission with someone who's bringing the buyer. The MLS is involved in this because they have a policy as an MLS that requires a listing agent to share commission with a buying agent. Because the MLS adopted that policy and is not a member of NAR technically, then the MLS is on the hook for the lawsuit, the Sherman Antitrust. Now, this is not a judgment against the MLS. This is the MLS settling and saying, well, we think it's a good idea. It says, quote, to avoid further risk, expense, inconvenience, and the distraction of burdensome and protracted litigation. Thereby, they thought it best to resolve the controversy and avoid the risk inherent with complex litigation to obtain complete dismissal from the action to the MLS PIN, PIN. So $900,000 will go to attorney's fees. I'm sorry, not $200,000. $900,000 will go to attorney's fees. Up to $200,000 will go towards expenses. $2,500 will go towards notifying the settlement class members. And each of the three named lead plaintiffs will get $2,500 for being class representatives. The plaintiffs will ask the court to use the remaining funds of at least $1.6 million to pay for future expenses in litigation against the remaining defendants. So now the MLS basically is turned on. I'm going to name the companies right currently. Has turned on Keller Williams, Anywhere, Remax, and Home Services of America. The MLS, of which they are members of and pay money to, is now fighting against them or cooperating against them. The suit alleges that the MLS PIN is not directly required to abide by NAR rules and nonetheless adopted a similar rule to NAR, requiring listing brokers to offer blanket unilateral offer of compensation to buyer brokers in order to submit a listing to the MLS PIN. So they changed their policy and now have made it optional. So if you are on the board of your local MLS or you have communications with your MLS and you want to keep your MLS from getting sued, you might want to make those optional instead of required, because if you make them required, it could put them on the hook for another lawsuit. All right, so there's your two legal battles regarding real estate agents and commissions, clerical operations policies, and MLSs. And there's one more unfortunate legal battle to talk about. The NAR is getting sued for harassment. Now, this is coming from Kenny Parcel, president of the National Association of Realtors, current president of the National Association of Realtors. This article comes out on a day where they also announced that they are searching for the nationwide search for a diverse CEO candidate for the NAR. So the National Association of Realtors and President Kenny Parcel is accused of sexual harassment. The trade organization revealed that it previously knew about and investigated claims and reiterated and rejects them. Even as the industry members demand accountability. In a statement to Inman on Friday, NAR spokesperson Montel Williams said the organization prides itself on being a welcoming, inclusive environment for all of our employees, and that it investigates claims of misconduct. Significantly, the statement also reveals that NAR previously thoroughly investigated the claims in the lawsuit by hiring an independent outside law firm to conduct the investigation and advise on lawful outcomes. Based on the findings of that independent third-party investigation, we reject the claims filed in this lawsuit and will vigorously defend against them. So basically, they're saying it didn't happen. The comments are a response to the lawsuit from Janelle Brevard, who previously served as NAR's chief storyteller. The suit's, what is that? The suit's complaint states that while working for NAR, Brevard came involved in a relationship with Parcel, that it involved sexually explicit conversations as well as Parcel requests for sexual favors. Brevard later told Parcel she wanted to break off the relationship. The complaint states spoke to attorneys about the situation. Complaint says 3 other women also spoke to attorneys. Those 3 other women are white. Brevard is black. NAR later fired Brevard, which the complaint described as retaliation. And it goes into, you guys can read more about this on him. And I honestly hate covering this stuff, but it's just part of it. There's a lot of comments from agents around the country chiming in, saying it's despicable, trying to hold NAR to a higher standard. I'm interested in the independent investigation, what it revealed. I mean, because they're a company that we pay, or an organization that we pay a lot of money to, I would like to see that. I don't know if that's possible or legal. Some of you that are in the NAR world may be able to know how we could find that information. But, I mean, I would say if it's real, it needs to be handled very swiftly. All right, any comments on that? No? Okay, I didn't think so. Matt's like, nah, I'm staying away from that one. All right, well, that's the majority of that's literally all the news that we have today. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, five stories about the market and what's happening, and then 3 stories about lawsuits with the NAR. In short, I don't really think the commission lawsuits have legs in our state, and it may be different in other states. But if you're in a state in which you're required to offer a specific commission amount to another company or a buyer or something like that, then I think there could be a danger there, even if the MLS requires it or your local board requires it. We're not required to. It is optional in our state. And I can remember other states being litigated against a couple of years ago because there was one company in particular that said everyone else at this other company we're going to offer $1 to, but everyone else in our marketplace will offer this other compensation to. And there was a lawsuit and stuff about that. But turns out a policy like that is not necessarily bad because it does show that all commissions are negotiable, which is the opposite of the Sherman antitrust. So I think we'll probably get to a point in the future in which, you know, you have to call the other agent and get something in writing that states the commission that you have on that deal. And maybe it's not, maybe the wrong move was making it public, but I think the DOJ asked us to make all those commission numbers public. So now they are public and they're out there and everybody can see them. Buyers can see them, sellers can see them. And if it's out there on what's being offered to someone, then doesn't that create additional collusion? For instance, if somebody has a widget and everyone else is pricing the widget at $3 and I knew I could price that widget at $2, why wouldn't I just price that widget at $3 just like everyone else? That artificially inflates the price. So I go back and forth on if this is a good thing or bad thing, but I think it's all back to our contracts. In our state contracts, it says, here's how much that the seller agrees to pay me. And then it gives them the option of what to pay the buyer, what to pay the buyer's agent. And I think any contracts that have that option, you're going to stay out of court. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, to dovetail into that as well, the consumer has a choice.
Yeah.
In who they use. So regardless of fee, take the fee completely out of it. No one's restricting, you know, in a consumer-based economy, who you can or cannot use either. So that to me is at least the national level, because they did talk about this last year at the NAR NXT event in Orlando.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they're like, as long as they have a choice. Now, as soon as we start restricting who you can use to buy and sell real estate through, then we got a problem. But yeah, the commission, I mean, to your point, it's already out there. And I think most of the platforms have accepted it as well, so that Zillow and Redfin Realtor, you can see all of these fees now. Anyway.
Yeah, it's not hidden. Maybe that was the problem they were trying to solve, is they felt like it was a hidden charge. And I think there are some agents that are disingenuous about that charge that'll say like, oh, I get paid from the seller. And then they put a charge in their contract. And then when they don't get 100% of the commissions, they back charge the buyer the additional amount that they had in their contract without really telling them what's going on. And they'll try to write it into back in the day when you could get an offer with a contingency accepted, when you could get an offer with a concession accepted, they would write it in as a closing cost. And that's just being disingenuous. So I'm glad that they're putting it out there. I mean, I want people to know what we make, what they pay me. I think it's fair, but at the same token, it's also optional, and it's not optional. It's also negotiable with every deal. So I kind of would rather have it more negotiable and less in stone, I guess you could say. Well, thank you guys for joining me today. Thanks for all the discussion that we had on Clubhouse. Love seeing you guys jump in. Y'all can find me at Razorback, RAYZORBACK. On Instagram is where I'm easiestly connected with. Easiest? That's not a phrase. You can connect with me easier there. Don't forget to download if you're watching us on YouTube, and that's where you always catch us, that's great. But you can also download the podcast and get the audio version of the show in case you missed the video. And sometimes it takes more of your phone's battery. If you're just wanting to listen to the audio of the show and then put your phone in your pocket while YouTube is doing its thing, you can get the audio only version by going to your favorite podcatcher and searching This Week in Real Estate and download it there. Also, take just a second and share it with someone else that you think might enjoy it. Another real estate agent, someone in the industry, investors, whoever you know that may enjoy this kind of real estate news. Share it with them. And yeah, thanks for joining. Reach out and let me know you listen. I appreciate it. It makes my day every time somebody says that. So we'll see you guys later.